Iran, a country of 87 million people in the heart of the Middle East, bordered by Turkey and Iraq to the west, the Caspian Sea to the north, Afghanistan and Pakistan to the east, and the Persian Gulf to the south. It is roughly the size of Western Europe, and it has been continuously civilized for longer than most nations have existed. Most people imagine Iran as a desert, and they are not entirely wrong. Much of the interior is covered by two massive salt deserts, the Dashti Kavir and the Dashti Lut. The Dashti Lut has recorded the highest land surface temperatures ever measured on Earth, over 70 degrees Celsius on the ground. It is one of the most inhospitable places on the planet. Along the Caspian coast in the north, the landscape changes completely. It is green, humid, almost subtropical. Rice fields, forests, and tea plantations, a completely different world from the desert interior, and many Iranians from the south have never seen it. But the single most important geographic fact about Iran is its position. Iran sits at the exact crossroads of east and west. Every great trade route, the Silk Road, the spice routes, the overland paths connecting China to Rome, pass through or near this land. That position made Iran fabulously wealthy for centuries. It also made Iran a target for every empire that ever wanted to control the world. In 559 BC, a man named Cyrus rose to power in a small kingdom in southwestern Iran. Within 30 years, he had built the largest empire the world had ever seen, stretching from Egypt and Greece in the west to India in the east. It was called the Achaemenid Empire, and Cyrus was its first great king. What made Cyrus remarkable was not just the size of his empire, it was how he ran it. He issued what some historians call the world's first declaration of human rights, written on a clay cylinder. He allowed conquered peoples to keep their religions, their languages, their customs. He freed the Jews from captivity in Babylon and let them return to Jerusalem. He is the only non-Jewish figure in the Hebrew Bible to be called the Messiah. This empire, this idea that different peoples could coexist under one administration without being forced to become the same, was Persia's greatest contribution to civilization. It lasted 2 centuries before Alexander the Great ended it in 330 BC. After Alexander, Iran was conquered again and again. Greeks, Parthians, Arabs, Turks, Mongols. For nearly 9 centuries, Iran had no independent government. When the Arabs conquered Iran in the 7th century and brought Islam, Iran did not simply absorb Arabic culture. It absorbed Islam and then transformed it. Iranian scholars, poets, mathematicians, and architects became the intellectual engine of the Islamic world. Avicenna, the father of modern medicine. Al-Biruni, who calculated the circumference of the earth in the 11th century. Omar Khayyam, the mathematician who also happened to write some of the most beautiful poetry in human history. By the 20th century, Iran was ruled by the Qajar dynasty, a weak government that had been selling off the country's resources to European powers to fund a lavish lifestyle. In 1921, a military officer named Reza Khan seized power, eventually crowning himself Shah and founding the Pahlavi dynasty. He modernized Iran aggressively, built roads, universities, railways. He banned the veil. He changed the country's name from Persia to Iran. He was effective, brutal, and deeply nationalist. His son, Mohammad Reza Shah, would take the throne in 1941. In 1951, Iran elected a new prime minister named Mohammad Mossadegh. He was a democratically elected nationalist lawyer who wore pajamas to international meetings and wept openly in Parliament. Mossadegh did something that outraged Britain. He nationalized Iran's oil industry. For decades, the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, which later became BP, had been extracting Iranian oil and keeping most of the profits. Mossadegh said, "This oil belongs to the Iranian people." The British government froze Iran's assets and organized an international boycott of Iranian oil. Iran's economy began to collapse. And then, in August 1953, the CIA and British intelligence launched a coup. They bribed Iranian military officers, paid street gangs to riot, flooded the press with disinformation, and overthrew the democratically elected government of Iran in 4 days. Mossadegh was arrested. The Shah was restored to absolute power. And as thanks for American help, the Shah signed over 40% of Iran's oil fields to US companies. The United States government formally acknowledged its role in this coup in 2013. But for Iranians, it was never a secret. It was the original wound. Iran is home to 87 million people. The majority, about 61%, are ethnically Persian. But Iran is also home to Azerbaijanis, Kurds, Arabs, Baloch, Turkmen, and dozens of other groups. It is a genuinely multicultural country, held together by the Persian language, by Shia Islam, and by a shared sense of civilizational identity. Religion in Iran is complicated. On paper, 94% of Iranians are Shia Muslim, and the government enforces Islamic law. But in practice, especially among younger Iranians and urban populations, the picture is far more secular than the government would like to admit. There is a significant gap between the official Iran and the lived Iran. What the official image of Iran almost never captures is the culture of hospitality. In Persian, there is a concept called ta'aruf, a system of elaborate social courtesy where you must offer things you do not mean and refuse things you do want, repeatedly, until the social ritual is complete. A guest in an Iranian home will be offered food. They will refuse. It will be offered again. They will refuse again. The third time, it is acceptable to accept. This is not manipulation. It is an entire philosophy of social grace, built around the idea that the other person's comfort matters more than your own convenience. The food deserves its own video. Iranian cuisine is one of the great underrated culinary traditions in the world. Saffron, pomegranate, dried limes, rose petals, walnuts, flavors that are simultaneously ancient and completely unique. The dish, fesenjan, chicken slow-cooked in a sauce of ground walnuts and pomegranate molasses, has been made in roughly the same form for over 2,000 years. What the world gets wrong about Iran. They picture women in black. They picture anger. What they do not picture is the 70% of science and engineering university students who are women. They do not picture the underground music scene, the film industry that regularly wins international awards, the young people in Tehran who are, in many ways, living a life not so different from young people in any major city. The government of Iran and the people of Iran are not the same thing. This distinction matters enormously. Iran is a country that has been conquered by Greeks, Arabs, Turks, and Mongols. It has been sanctioned, isolated, and misrepresented for 40 years. It has been reduced, in most Western minds, to a nuclear threat and a flag being burned on television. And yet it is still here, still speaking the same language it spoke 1,000 years ago, still reading the same poets, still inviting strangers in for tea, still producing mathematicians, filmmakers, engineers, and architects who leave their mark on the world even when the world refuses to acknowledge where they are from. The story of Iran is not the story of a dangerous regime. It is the story of a civilization so old, so deep, and so resilient that every force in history that tried to erase it ended up becoming part of it instead. That is not propaganda. That is 3,000 years of evidence. Let me know in the comments which direction you want to go next. And if this video gave you something, share it with one person who thinks they already know what Iran is.